Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today for our Ask Me Anything panel, which has gathered some of the best minds in the business to discuss today's hot topic, which is retail. Joining me on today's panel is Andy Cohan, co-founder and co-CEO of ACI Licensing, Gay Dean, VP of Retail for Pocket Watch, and Stephen Heller, President of the Brand Liaison. This session today is designed for you to ask questions about anything that piques your interest. Please use that Q&A chat box on the right-hand side of your screen to type your question. If you have a particular question for a speaker, just let me know who you want it to be directed to, and I'll send it that way. Without further ado, let's get started. Thank you for joining me, everyone. It's nice to see you all.
Great to be here as always.
Well, let's kick it off with our first wonderful question, which is directed to the group. In your mind, what elements make up the most successful and productive brand and retailer relationship?
I'll start it off. I'm not shy, but this is one we're asked a lot. And for those of you who've been in meetings with me, I talk about the three-legged stool. And you always have to have the right brand with the right product at the right channel of distribution. So you need all three legs for the stool to stand. And I can give a quick example, and Andy knows this story. We had David Tutera at Michael's. Phenomenal program. His brand, wedding DIY, match Michael's customer, the right price points, did very well. It was basically a DTR for a number of years, and we just opened that up earlier this year. Now his product does very well at Ross and TJ, but it's not always that way. We also did a Michael's program with Lord DIY, 20 million viewers. We thought this is perfect. Her audience, 13, 15, 18-year-old girls, maybe not the best program for Michael's. Her products did much better at Target and didn't do as well at Michael's. So you got to match the right brand, the right product, and the right channel of distribution.
I think that's a good point. Gay or Andy, what do you think?
I was just going to say, I really like your three-legged stool analogy, and I would even maybe make it a four-legged stool on occasion. Time. It has to be the right time, at the retailers, because sometimes, timing is everything. It might not have been the right time, last fall, but maybe it is for spring. So I would just throw that in there. But
and it could be too early or too late.
Exactly. Totally agree with you. I mean, that's what I was like, hey, every time there's a new buyer, I'm like, hey, new buyer, new opportunity, but kind of the same thing. It's all about timing. But I was in a few things that I think about for this question is like, have shared goals. It's like, make sure that you guys have shared goals and a vision of what you really want out of that relationship. Because, if I'm thinking, oh, I really want this, and, they're thinking, I really want this, it's never going to really work. And of course, collaboration. It's like really working together to make sure that it's the best partnership possible for both of you. And I think what you need to do then to have that collaboration is transparency. It's like making sure, things are going to go wrong. Things are going to go right. But talking to each other and saying, hey, maybe this isn't working for me, or hey, this really works for me. I think just, having that, partnership and relationship and the collaboration would make things go better. The other thing is, it's kind of back to that whole thing. It's just communication. It's like laying out, how are we going to talk? Are we going to have, weekly statuses, monthly status? But like, I think, sometimes, as we all know, an email, we get 8,000 of them a day. It can be misread or misinterpreted. And I think, a lot of times just like a Zoom, Zoom is, is kind of the way of the future right now. Right. But like just getting on the phone and actually talking to them is probably really good. And a couple other things, which I feel like I'm going on and on, but like learn. I think you're going to learn from some things, again, you're going to do wrong. You might learn from your mistakes. You might learn something new. It's just like making sure that you have the ability and the time to shift that. And then finally, it's like really just setting up a timing on whenever you're going to do whatever you're going to do. It's like having those shared milestones, those shared common goals, and the shared timing, I think really can help, those type of partnerships. So I don't know, that's kind of how I look at the partnerships.
I think those are all very excellent points. And some of them are science unto themselves, right? Timing and communication. Both of those you could go on for hours about, I'm sure. Andy, what about you? What's your take? Oh, I think we have frozen. Let's move on to the next question.
He's not usually this quiet, so.
Oh, he really is frozen.
Well, we'll try again in a little bit. So the next question is for the group again, is what categories are most effective at retail and which, in your opinion, are not? It's a bit of a loaded question, maybe.
Well, I'm going to go first, beat Steven. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean,
listen, I love listening to you too. I learned so much from you. So.
I learned so much from you. You're so great. I mean, I think it all depends on the brand and the property, because I mean, it really has to start there. I mean, I think you have to evaluate the brand because, you know, from my experience, like obviously some things are wonderful in toys. Some things are wonderful in apparel. I mean, like, you know, I kind of think about like, you know, Hello Kitty. It was a great lifestyle brand. Not so great in toys. I mean, I know they've always kind of tried, but it like never was, you know, like really great. You know, I look at like, you know, Ryan's World for us, like toys is like the core, and then you can expand, you know, from there. So it all really depends on the brand. So I think you have to really evaluate the brand, what's the DNA of the brand, and how can you be creative? And I think, you know, I don't know why this popped up in my head, but like, I just love like those Tide laundromats. I mean, here you take Tide, just like, you know, we all use it like every day. And some genius somewhere came up with like, let's have Tide laundromats. To me, totally makes sense. It's like a great extension of the brand. And it's like, you know, again, thinking about what your brand is, what it can bring, and how do you bring like innovation to the category. And I think the other thing I would just say is like, when you're evaluating those brands, like, what does it look like in the store that you maybe want to be in? Like, what are your margins? What are the timelines? What's trending? Where is their white space? So really like taking a look at every brand for itself and figuring out like what's best for the brand. So that's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. So in effect, there's no limitations. Your only limitation is your own creativity.
Right.
And the retail buyer sometimes.
Yes.
No, they're perfect.
I think you're speaking to authenticity, right? Like a category extension needs to be authentic to the core brand itself, right? So
you know what? In its simplest format, it just really needs to make sense. And in today's world, it's probably more incumbent on both the licensee and the licensor to lay that out to the retail buyer. So it becomes you more or less have connected all the dots. And either they're going to say yes or no, as opposed to thinking through the process.
Good point. What about you, Steven?
You know, which categories are most effective at retail? It's such a general question because retail is such a broad term. You know, you have your department stores and your off-price and your mass that carry everything. So everything could make sense, but I always like to look at the specialty, the other channels that are less predictable. So we mentioned like Michael's and Joann, but Bed Bath & Beyond or Williams-Sonoma. We love programs at Lowe's and Home Depot. Like, how do you find these less obvious channels of distribution to do a program? And Lowe's and Home Depot both getting involved in branded programs now. And then I think at retail, those impulse items need eyeballs. So they have to be somewhere near where people are going to see them. Or if you're looking at putting them online, you need a ton of marketing. And, you know, we'll talk about later, I'm sure, you know, Facebook and Insta, and how do you get eyeballs to those impulse products? So I always look for the alternative channels of distribution.
It's a great point. That's an excellent point, actually. And I think it's something that we might be able to talk about in this next question. Which are what are the numerous challenges that licensees, licensors, and retailers are facing today, given maybe the supply chain challenges or, you know, reaching that consumer? What do you think?
Listen, that supply chain issue, and I was just watching a video in the licensing university on it. That supply chain issue just highlights some of the other problems, because today it's shipping. Last year or the year before it was tariffs or shutdowns from COVID. there's always something. So what are the solutions to those supply chain issues? First of all, domestic production making a very strong comeback. I know Walmart has huge initiatives to Made in USA. And then Amanda, you and I have spoken about e-commerce. Mm-hmm. And I don't even want to use the word print on demand anymore, because it's so much more than your grandmother's, square on a printed tee. They're able to produce cosmetics, manufacture on demand. And we're going to do a whole webinar at the Brand Licensing Summit, the Executive Summit, on produce on demand. But that's another solution to this supply chain. So those are my thoughts. But it just highlights the issues that we have with import.
Well, I love that plug for the Brand and Licensing Innovation Summit coming in October in New York City. Andy, I would love to hear your take on this. What are those challenges, particularly given the supply chain, that licensees, licensors, and retailers are facing today?
I think from a timing standpoint, people are going to need to make decisions much more quickly and much more defined. And before, and for those of us who are ex-retailers, you're in the perpetual meeting every moment of your life while you're working, and maybe you need to revert back. And I'm old compared to all these people, so back in the dark ages, a buyer could be a buyer, and you'd make a decision. And that's probably one of the magical parts of the off-price sector, is that it's probably the last segment left in retail, where the buyer looks at an item, they determine the price, and they buy it. And the manufacturer can make the decision right away as to what they want to do with the product, and there's reliability. So to me, it's a whole timing on the whole decision-making process just needs to be a heck of a lot faster than it is today.
Also because of the education of the consumer. Like, they see it now, they want it now, and that lead time, especially with things that are trending, by the time manufacturers got on board with Tiger King, it was done. Like,
I mean, look, you go to Starbucks today, you don't stand in line anymore. You order it on your app so that you go and pick it up right away. So, your habits have changed. You order it online, you go to Nordstrom's, you pull into the parking lot, and you pick it up at the door. So nobody's going to be in a queue anymore. That doesn't work.
What do you think, Gay?
I was, when I thought about this question, when you asked us, I thought a lot about what is happening for Pocket Watch right now. I mean, so August from a toy standpoint, it's a huge set time frame. Well, there's a lot of product not on the shelf. We had extensive marketing plans. We need to sit there and think about it and make adjustments, how we're not exactly sure when the stuff is actually even going to come. When is it going to go on the shelf? Then I think about consumer satisfaction for this too. It's do they understand their global supply chain challenges right now? I have no idea. Are they going to
Probably not.
When they're going to have to pay more for that item, and little Johnny's not going to get his whatever little Galaxy Explorer's rocket ship. I don't think so. The other thing is the profits that are lost, the margins that are lost, the sales that are lost. Can't make that back up. And that's going to be, really interesting. I mean, I know, Walmart and Target and Kohl's all just came out with, great Q2 performances. It'll be really curious as that can continue in Q3 based on all these challenges. And then frankly, an empty shelf is just not a good look. I mean, you go into the store, we all lived through it with the toilet paper, but again, I think, it's really a challenge. And what do we do? And then, like you said, Andy, it's we all need to make adjustments because we have to move a lot faster. We have to rejigger our marketing plans to support these products when they're coming in. So again, kind of back to my whole thing, it's all about timing. We need to have marketing at the right time because, we're kind of losing out right now because the products aren't even able to make it to the store.
I mean, it's really, for the next 90 days to 180 days, it's a market share game. It's not profitability, it's market share. So the strong are going to thrive and even get stronger because they can afford to play that game.
That's interesting. That's actually a great point. And it actually speaks to, you know, this next question, which is great. We just keep building, which is that omni-channel experience, right? And, you know, this is talking about how you meet the consumer wherever they are. But A, does omni-channel even exist in 2021? Is that even still a thing? And what is it like? What does it actually mean today? Stephen or Andy,
Yeah.
do you have thoughts?
Listen, to me, omnichannel exists more than ever because there's so much information, and you know, if it's an influencer wearing something, or you know, in the past, multi-channels of distribution was viewed as competition. Today, multi-channels of distribution to me just builds momentum. My friend Jesse Itzler, people buy into momentum. Multi-channel, so like we have the comfy, the oversized sweatshirt from Shark Tank, and that product, there's people wearing it on Instagram. They have their own website. There's pallet programs in Costco. They're doing a pop-up shop in New York City. But those multi-channels is just driving that brand higher and higher. And the proof that multi-channel helps retail, you see in the changing world of infomercials. Because in the past, infomercial and retail thought they were competitors. Today's infomercial is really an advertisement for that as seen on TV product to sell on the retail shelf. And they help each other. They don't compete with each other.
I look at omni-channel really is defined as a touch point, and it's just another access point for the consumer to execute an action, whatever that action may be. So, you know, from my perspective, and like Stephen said, you know, you can go a lot of different places for information. You can go a lot of different places to execute your transaction. And omni-channel just opened up the number of options on where somebody can go and make a purchase, and how to make a purchase.
It's very true, and it's become more seamless, right? You know, you can shop in store, online, and go, you know, pick up in the parking lot, but you're still with all business.
Well, what it's done actually, it's changed your expectation, because before you were concerned about customer service at store level, and now you're concerned about that last mile of customer service. Did I get it when it's ordered? Did the package show up at the door? Was it delivered at the right place? Is the ease of return, is it a pretty seamless process on return? Did they credit my transaction properly? It just changed your expectations.
That whole interface of your website to the consumer. And again, now that's you as a manufacturer or brand talking direct to your customer, and that communication has to be there. That's your brand.
But still, I would argue the in-person experience still matters just as importantly, right? Because when you do get the customer into the store, it needs to be a special experience, right?
The experience, I don't know if the experience is special or not, as much as it needs to meet the expectation.
Better way of phrasing it, definitely. This is why you're the expert.
Well, it depends on the brand.
I just have the scars to prove it.
So my next question for you all. How are retailers using social media and digital to enhance and mobilize audiences? This really speaks to what we're chatting about right now.
Go ahead, Dave. Go ahead, guys.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I feel like that's exactly what Pocket Watch does. Like, as a company, like, I think we have this whole new genre. Like, you know, we're utilizing these YouTube stars. You know, again, maybe it was an infomercial back in the day, but, you know, everyone is watching YouTube from, you know, two to, you know, 100 or whatever. And it's like, we're developing franchises out of the DNA of these creators and creating great, you know, global franchise brands. And it's just amazing. And, you know, what's really been like how I've seen the growth. You know, I've been at Pocket Watch a little over 2 years. It's like, it's not just YouTube. You know, you're going to see growth on like OTT channels. We have content there. So we're on every screen. Everywhere kids are, we are. You know, we have gaming, we have publishing, we have consumer products. I mean, you know, from that digital standpoint, we are everywhere kids are. And I think that has really been a game changer and like kind of new and unique.
I mean, the toy industry is probably the most indicative of it. I mean, look, 30 years ago, a toy company wouldn't put anything into work unless they had a Saturday morning TV show. Now it's a whole nother story. Now it's, where are you on YouTube? Where are you on TikTok? Where are you on any platform that kids are now interacting with? And that's the decision. That's a big metric in the decision-making process on how a toy company is going to go to market, if they're going to go to market, when they're going to go to market. So it's fast, but it's great.
Listen, social media is today's advertising from 30 years ago. So how are you catching those eyeballs, reinforcing your brand message, showing off your product, the integrations, the products that are coming out of like a company like Gaze Pocket Watch, but it's even Facebook ads or other programs, just how they, it's today's advertising, however you get those eyeballs.
I know. Isn't it crazy? Like you just think about something and it's on your Facebook feed. I'm like, how does it know? How do they know? That's insane, right? Like I didn't even say it.
Well, my question for you from this is then, with all this data at your fingertips now, is there still room for gut instinct when it comes to, a product launch?
I mean, totally. I think of course, but I think, like at Pocket Watch, we're trying to be, franchise first, more data driven, and because we have the information, right? Why wouldn't you use it? But of course, I think, it's art and science. That's what I always.
The data validates your gut instinct. If you don't have the gut instinct, you're not going to get to the data.
That's a good way to look at it. Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. So, okay. So then what remains the best way to reach, acquire, and retain new customers for any retailer?
This goes back to what Andy was saying. Meet their expectations. Stay true to what your brand is. And if it's Ross or TJ and your brand is those value finds, those name brands at the right price points, that's the shopping experience that consumer expects. And if you're going into, a high-end jeweler, you're expecting a much different experience and much more luxurious. So you just have to meet the customers or exceed the customer's expectations.
Look, Walmart for 25 years had a very simple brand proposition. We're the low price. That was Walmart's brand proposition for 20 plus years. And frankly, when you went to go sell Walmart, they loved it if you sold other retailers because Walmart's proposition was, we're going to be a lower price. So we want you to get as broad a distribution as possible. Other companies are going to do innovation and features. So
Apple.
Yeah, exactly, which is Apple. So other ones, I always want to be in stock. I can always find it. So there's your rise of the big box store, because if you're going to go into the home world, you're going to go to Bed Bath & Beyond, and you're going to go to Williams-Sonoma because, again, you're going to meet that consumer expectation. Or the same at Target. You're going to find something new, fresh, at an unbelievable price, and it's fun.
Great.
Very true. So relevant to Licensing Expo Virtual, let's talk about what you see the future of licensed product looking like at retail.
Hopefully a lot more.
Yes, indeed.
Maybe you should turn around the question and say how much product you see at retail that isn't licensed.
I love that question. Let's actually look at it from that perspective. I think that's great. Do you have a take, Gay, maybe?
I just think, how I look at it is this is the opportunity to be more creative and innovative than ever. Because again, it's just like, the brands that we're bringing, to retail, we have to make sure that we're like true to that brand, but also making sure that the retailer feels like they're getting something out of it and that their customer will get something out of it. So again, I think, like the more creative you can be when you're coming to a retailer, with an idea, with a brand, with a category, that's the person that's going to win. And again, giving them, not only great product, but great, marketing. And again, they care about like, how can you inspire my guests to come to the store and buy something and maybe buy a few other things, on the way. So I think it's like, I think about it and I think it's just creativity in the product, in the brand, and the way you market.
I'm going to tie Andy's last answer, Gay's answer, and your question together, because bringing the retailer something unique. One thing that I'm noticing, especially in fashion, unlike Andy's, said that Walmart didn't care in the past if that product was all over because they're going to be the lowest price. What I'm seeing a ton of in the fashion world is brands are no longer agnostic. Brands live at a certain retailer, and other retailers will shy away from that brand, and they start to have their own homes. And when we pitch licensing, the question we always get, where does it live at retail? And I'm seeing a lot of consolidation, that where a brand has a very strong foothold in a certain retailer, their directly competing retailer will shy away or potentially not carry it. And that could be Walmart, Target, it could be TJ, Ross and Burlington, Lowe's and Home Depot. They want different brands, as opposed to when there were much broader number of department stores and off-price was less of an impact. Those brands could live everywhere. Today they can't.
Do you think retailer choice is narrowing or broadening in this age?
You mean number of retailers, number of places to go sell, or
number of places for a consumer to go buy? Do you think those choices?
The number of places for a person to buy is infinitesimal at this point. I mean, especially you have a whole new sector that, like, who knew from resale 10 years ago? Mm-hmm. Industry didn't exist. It's now sucked out probably $10 billion out of the marketplace. And I mean, I'm not an economist, but my guess is that number will triple over the next 2 to 3 years.
So explain that word resale, Andy.
So resale basically are the Poshmarks of the world, ThredUp. Those, I think there's an announcement today that Urban Outfitters is actually just firing up their concept in resale as well. Now, why are they doing that? Because they want to, so back to the earlier question about how do you hold on to the consumer? Well, that's how you hold on to the consumer, because now I'm giving you another option for purchasing. No different than when on Target's website, they have a marketplace. Walmart has a marketplace. Well, the marketplace isn't to say, hey, great, I'm going to help my competitors. That's not the purpose at all. The purpose of the marketplace is to keep you inside the ecosystem. So, I think it really is infinitesimal, because there's also no barrier to entry to go and do it yourself and offer that whatever you're going to offer, go direct to the consumer and do it yourself. Now, how well you execute, that's a whole nother story. But can you do it? Yes, you can do it.
I think those are all good points. I mean, and you raise a great point, which is they're meeting the customer need. But do you think it's also speaking to that idea about sustainability or even, supply chain challenges? Does that come into play here?
Those are, I mean, those come down to what's important to you as a consumer. Mm-hmm. I mean, look, Newman's Own is an unbelievable brand, but you go to the grocery store, there's 4 different kinds of lemonade, but you know what? It's probably all the same price, but you may buy Newman's Own because you feel really good about the marketing message of what the give back component is. So, and I think culturally, people are a lot more aware at a lot younger age. I mean, they teach sustainability in nursery school now. So you've grown up with that as being an important aspect of your life and doing something good for the planet at a very early age in your life. It wasn't like that 10 years ago.
That's a good point. So let's talk then about the ideas of experiential or retailtainment. Are those still valid words in today's, landscape? And can you define it and discuss how it's going to shape up maybe in 2022, for example?
I don't know if I can define it. I know it when I see it. I think it ties back to the same theme on meeting expectations, but retail, retailtainment, retail entertainment, it's a buying experience that, in my mind, ties some sort of activity or experiential into the sale. My favorite examples of retailtainment, I love that M&M store. There's one in New York City. There's one in Vegas. The M&M store and the Hershey store. You are immersed in an M&M experience, and it just kind of leads you to your purchase. But you feel like you're in an M&M's museum. Van Gogh did a great
you
job.
go to Disney World or Disneyland, you're not going for the rides. How much did you walk out with in terms of anything unnecessary that you totally had no intentions of buying, and you end up after 4 days buying another suitcase because you need to lug all that stuff home.
And it's Mickey branded for sure.
Yeah, it's an unbelievable. I mean, it's genius.
When you were saying that, it made me think about, like, you know, Target's announcement that they're doing more Disney stores. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Fading out. You know, you go into Target, and there's one, the Disney store by my home, and, you know, it's a great experience. And like, you go in, you can sit down, there's music, and it's really, you know, unlike any other experience in Target. Or, you know, now they just, you know, partnered with Ulta, and it's like a great experience. And I think, you know, Target and other retailers, you know, Kohl's now has Sephora, and like, those are kind of different type of retail experiences, retailtainment experience as well, and meeting the customers and where they need to be. So instead of having to go to the mall, you just go to Kohl's and get your Sephora.
I mean, prior to the pandemic, the American Doll store, the restaurant at the American Doll store in New York was the toughest reservation to get at a restaurant in New York.
A great example of an entertainment experience, and Jamie Siegelman there done such a phenomenal job, even through the pandemic, and their pivots, like you said, Gay. How did they change and their marketing, you know, through the pandemic? But great example of retailtainment.
I would agree with you. And as somebody in their Target demo with a young child who is obsessed, it's the epitome, I think, of retailtainment, right? You can go in and you get to experience the brand and live the brand, and then walk out with an armload of a lot of things, right, in your extra suitcase.
Yeah, that's why Legoland exists.
Another great one.
Exactly. So my next question for you, and this is a fun one. What is your take on direct to consumer, and is it a dirty word? When is it appropriate for a brand to leverage a DTC approach, and when is it best to shy away?
This is very similar to what we discussed a few minutes ago with omnichannel, because I look at the DTC outreach as one of those omnichannels. And again, they used to view it as competition. Today, this is touch points. This is brand building. You know, I talked about the Comfy, or Bum Equipment, for example, has different product on their website than they offer the consumer. So I think the direct to consumer, you can't neglect it. You can't overlook it. You're really doing your brand a disservice if you don't have a direct to consumer approach. And I think retailers appreciate that today and don't look at that as competing. And maybe going back to what Gay said, find a different value proposition for your retailer.
Listen, the brands became retailers. They started it when the brands started opening their own stores with Polo and Calvin Klein and Armani. I mean, pick a brand. Go into any outlet mall or what have you, or even a major mall. The brands became retailers regardless. So initially, the department stores all freaked out, and then everybody understood. Guess what? I'm adding awareness level, and in effect, I'm doing a positive, and it's not a negative. Now, what it evolved to is that different forms of how to access and how to buy products change. So no longer is the brand a retail, no longer is it the brand just a retail store. Now it's a website. Now it's a YouTube channel. Now it's whatever it wants to be.
That's exactly right.
The opposite. Sorry, like a Harry's, like shaving. Like they were a D2C brand. Now they're like in Target. And I mean, I also think it's like a great opportunity if you're a brand owner to test things, like try different things that maybe you can get on a retail shelf, or you could definitely test, you know, because it's your own thing. So you can test all this stuff, which I think is a great opportunity as well.
It's a great point. And again, leaning on the data and the metrics and the entire, meeting your customer where they are approach. So it's all tying together really nicely.
Yeah, but Gay brings up a great point. It's a wonderful format for testing.
Mm-hmm. Well, so then let's flip that question, ask the same thing, but is DTR, direct to retail, is that a curse word? And when is that appropriate to leverage? And when is it not?
A curse word for who?
I don't know.
When Gay was at Target, I wrestled with it. And still, this is a double-edged sword, a super difficult decision for a brand owner and a licensing agent to make that call, because there's so much value. When you get a store, when Gay was behind, a brand or a program at Target, like the sky's the limit to the potential. You have a DTR, direct to retail license, with a major retailer. The volume, the support from the retailer, what you can do in marketing and shop in shop with space sharing is so great. On the other hand, the double-edged sword, you only have one retailer, you have one customer, all your eggs in one basket. We were working with a brand doing over $100 million at Walmart. One day Walmart said, you know what, we're not carrying that brand anymore. Like, that was it. Like, you don't really have much place to go when either it doesn't work or the retailer changes direction or something. So
the trees don't grow to touch the clouds.
It's a double-edged sword. It's such a difficult decision because when it works, it's great.
Yep.
Well, Gay, you could talk a lot about this. You've probably done dozens.
I think I'm having flashbacks of some like horror stories with one major licensor when my contract was about, I think it was 500 pages long, just with all the rules that they have. But, again, I think you're exactly right. Like it can be good and it can be bad. And, it's interesting too, because particularly, the big mass merchants are really going towards their own brand and their own private label. So like to even, you have to figure out again, like what's that creativity? What's that differentiation? How are you going to even make a difference when they have their own whole, private label brands that they want to put in the store and do all the space and design and source and everything. So it has to be kind of a pretty special opportunity, I think, to even do it anymore.
I just want to touch on that because, it's funny. I've seen that pendulum swing back and forth over the years. Literally, it was probably 3 years ago when Walmart said to that $100 million brand, we're not going to carry it. We're doing our house brands now. And by the way, that client got some private label out of it. But the pendulum swung and they said, we're going to do our house brands. We're going to carry our own brands. Look at Walmart today. Reebok, Justice, like they want brands now. And that pendulum is swinging back. I think Target's probably done a much better at cultivating their house brands. And then when you get to the TJ Maxx, Burlington, Ross department stores, they need brands too. So
they built their business on brands.
On brand. So it's not really as much of a DTR, although there are some secrets in the industry with even those channels.
So I have a good question from the audience that I'd love to ask, which is, for someone who is brand new to licensing, what would you consider a great entry-level job? Let's help out those newbies.
Someone new to licensing, what's a great entry-level job?
Or a first job. How do they get into licensing and what's a great entry point for them?
I was going to say, I think actually being a licensing person, so like managing, working at a licensor and then, securing contracts with, licensees. I mean, I think that's where you learn the business, you learn the numbers, you learn how to analyze. You're like thrown in the middle of everything. And you really, I think you can learn, a lot, particularly if you're at like a great, licensor. So I mean, that's first came to my head right away.
And I look at you and Andy, I look up to both of you, but both of your history is from the retail side.
I mean, my answer was going to be actually and Steve, you kind of hit the nail on the head, is that, you know, as a retailer, you learn what to buy, how to buy, why to buy, and how the numbers are all going to work and what the margins are in respective categories. And if you move around in retail to different departments, you get an unbelievable access point to saying, okay, well, this is how it works in stationery, but this is how it works in housewares, and this is how it works in women's tops, and this is how it works in jewelry. And then once you kind of have all of those different experiences, it just helps you think, if nothing else.
Or marketing. I think the answer is, in this world, wherever you can get your feet in the door, that has.
But on the other hand, listen, if you could get your foot in the door at a place like a Disney or you know, one of the Levi, or, you know, other large multi-brand companies, or even ABG, and go work with Jamie or something like that, I mean, you're going to get a lot of exposure to different formats.
Excellent advice from all of you. I think that's great. So go to a licensor or a retailer and you will learn the business, essentially.
I think so.
You can go work for an advertising agency.
And network.
Network, I think so. If you're getting into licensing, it's the business of relationships, and everything you do is that's fundamental to it, right?
And great job boards on Licensing International, Women in Toys. There's always people looking, and great job boards in our industry. Sam Hafif said it great. Competitors support each other. The networking is the key.
You're absolutely right. Okay, so I have a great question about outdoor sporting goods as a category. You know, sales have risen during the pandemic. Consumers are continuing to spend more time outside. Are you seeing a growth in that segment? Truly?
You know, a ton of growth and I'll mush together activewear and outdoor sporting goods activity. And it's both, you know, in a performance as well as in aspirational, because it's the way people are dressing. It's the look that people wear. But, you know, we have Bear Paw Outdoors, American Outdoorsman, Lifeguard brand, Bum Equipment. All of our active and outdoor brands are doing extremely well at retail and in licensing, because, again, some people are using it for hiking and performance. And some people, this is just the way we dress today.
Business on top.
Or people are using fashion brands to make outdoor games just look more fun and be more appealing.
Mm-hmm.
Good point. Marketing. Very good.
I mean, we're doing with a brand. You know, we own CNC California, and like people are using the brand now to use it on skateboards and kites and whatever. I mean,
because the brand stands for California lifestyle. It's great. Love that brand.
Yeah, it's you know, people like California. I live here, but I mean, don't know if after you live here for such a long time if you're gonna like it. But
you're using the DNA of the brand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, I have time for one more question, and I want to make sure we get this in, which is, what trends do you see ahead for retail? What, you know, beyond the ones we've discussed, do you see any new specific trends emerging, especially as we, I don't know, get used to what our new situation is, or do you see us reverting back to old habits? Where do you see it coming and going? Anyone? Stephen.
I see a few. You know, we talked about earlier on this call, we talked about pop-up shops.
Right.
I see that as a little bit of a trend, and touch points with your customers. Shop in shops. So we talked about the Justice shop in shop at Walmart, Macy's with the Blue Mercury, with now Toys R Us, American Outdoorsman at JCPenney. Shop in shops, I see, you know, moving toward a little bit more of what you see in Asia and Korea, the department stores embracing that. And then I'll plug one more time for our Bliss session. Print on demand, produce on demand, flips that whole inventory model upside down. That makes so much sense from a business standpoint for so many reasons. But I think, you know, pop-up shops, capsule collections, shop-in-shops, these unique ways, to go back to what Gay said, unique ways of the retailer bringing product.
I'm very much looking forward to our session at Bliss, not to plug it, but to say that the whole produce on demand with the diversification of products that you can get now has grown so much, and it's going to be quite interesting to dive more into that. So I would agree with you. Steve, Andy or Gay, do you have any other thoughts on this topic before we wrap it up?
Oh, I'll defer to Gay. She's much more in tune with this than me.
No, I mean, no, I think, you know, you hit the nail on your head. And I think it's like, we're just like in this, you know, amazing new frontier again, right? You know, I think the pandemic threw us all for a loop, and still does. However, you know, it's like, I think we all have learned to, you know, be smarter, you know, work smarter and do new, unique things. And I think it's like the spirit of being in this pandemic has probably produced more innovation. I mean, look at, we're on Zoom. I mean, how many Zooms did you do, you know, before the whole pandemic? I mean, once in a while, you're like, whatever, I'll just do a conference call. And I think, you know, it makes us think a lot differently, which I think actually in the end will make us more innovative, you know, for the future, and the same with how we work with retailers.
Well, we are at time, and I cannot thank you all enough. This was a really wonderful session. I hope our audience was able to learn a lot from your wonderful and robust minds. So thank you so much, and I hope everybody enjoyed.
Phenomenal, great job.
Thank you for allowing this to happen. It was really a pleasant experience. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone, and goodbye.
Take care. Bye now.